Back in the 80s, cartoons were mostly about two things: selling toys and saving the world before breakfast. But in 1987, one show aimed higher. It gave us cowboys with laser rifles, robot horses with attitude, and a sheriff who could talk to animals and fight corruption on a desert planet. That show was BraveStarr, and weirdly enough, it predicted a lot of what we're living through right now. AI sidekicks, virtual addiction, energy crises, even ethical policing. This so-called kids cartoon basically saw 2025 coming from 1987. If that kind of forgotten 80s madness makes you nostalgic, hit super thanks to keep these stories alive and check out the DVD links in the description if you want to see the show for yourself. Now grab your hat, because this isn't just another retro deep dive, it's the story of the space sheriff who beat the future to it.
Go back to BraveStarr and the rest of your do-gooders.
No, Tex. I am here to do good for you.
Oh yeah.
When Filmation announced a new cartoon in 1987 about cowboys in space, people didn't really know what to think. This was the same studio behind He-Man and She-Ra, the kings of toy-fueled fantasy. So naturally, everyone expected another muscle-bound hero yelling moral lessons at the camera. But BraveStarr was different. Instead of castles and magic swords, it gave us a new kind of frontier. New Texas, a dusty alien world where saloons stood next to spaceports and outlaws rode hover horses instead of stallions. Imagine Clint Eastwood dropped in the middle of Star Wars, and you're getting close. At first glance, it looked like just another mashup made to sell action figures. But if you pay attention, there's something deeper going on. BraveStarr wasn't parodying the Wild West, it was updating it. The same themes of law, survival, and greed were there, but now they were played out against the backdrop of corporate mining colonies, robot sheriffs, and moral gray areas that felt way more modern world than Saturday Morning. And that's where things get interesting, because under the blaster fights and campy dialogue, BraveStarr quietly built a world that mirrored the future we ended up living in. It predicted everything we'd come to debate decades later. Energy monopolies, cybernetic ethics, even what justice means when technology controls everything around us.
Guess I won't be able to take the children on that camping trip.
Aw, shucks. I'm gonna miss sleeping under the stars, fresh air, and whiny young'uns.
It wasn't afraid to be weird either. One minute you'd get a classic shootout at high noon, the next, a conversation about overmining a planet's resources. That mix of goofiness and groundedness gave BraveStarr a unique edge. It was somehow both a kid's show and a rough sketch of the 21st century. And right at the center of it all stood one of the most underrated heroes of the 80s, a lawman with spirit powers, a laser pistol, and a code stronger than steel. Meet Marshall BraveStarr, the man keeping order on a planet full of smugglers, mutants, and trigger-happy robots. He wasn't your average Saturday morning hero. No magic sword, no alien armor, no shiny badge that did all the work. BraveStarr was the power. His abilities came from 4 spirit animals: the strength of the bear, the eyes of the hawk, the speed of the puma, and the ears of the wolf. Every time he called one on, lightning flashed across the screen and a blast of synth music hit like caffeine. To an 8-year-old, it was pure spectacle. To an adult watching it now, it's a prototype for biological augmentation decades before cyberpunk made it cool. Think about it. He could amplify his hearing like a directional microphone, see miles away like a surveillance drone, and boost his highest strength like an exosuit on command. The show framed it as mysticism, but it's basically a blueprint for neural linked enhancement, the same stuff military labs and medical startups chase today. And BraveStarr himself wasn't your typical 80s macho man either.
I warned you once. I won't again.
Strength of the bear!
Now get out of here before I really get irritated.
He was one of the first indigenous heroes to lead a mainstream animated series. Filmation didn't just use the aesthetic, they wove Native American values directly into the story. Balance, respect for nature, and the idea that power means responsibility. It gave the show a quiet sense of heart, even when the budget clearly couldn't afford a third background. There was a calm to BraveStarr. He wasn't shouting catchphrases or flexing every 5 seconds. He solved problems with empathy as often as he did with his laser revolver. And what made him different? He wasn't selling strength. He he was showing character. So yeah, he could bench press a robot and outdraw a cyborg outlaw, but what really made him stand out was how human he was, a sheriff in a world that had already gone mechanical. And speaking of mechanical, his partner was about to steal the show. You can't talk about BraveStarr without mentioning his partner, the one and only 3030, half horse, half machine, and somehow all attitude. He wasn't just there for comic relief or toy sales. 3030 was the kind of sidekick who would outshine the hero without even trying. He could walk on 4 legs one minute, stand upright and fire a shotgun named Sarah Jane the next, and still find some time to argue about moral philosophy in between laser fights. Now, back in the day, he was just the cool mechanical horse. But watch it now, and you'll start realizing this guy was AI before AI was even a thing. 3030 thought, joked, questioned orders, got angry, felt guilt, and even doubted his own purpose. That's not just comic writing. That's the groundwork for modern artificial intelligence ethics.
How much longer are we gonna roam around this godforsaken desert? There's nothing here but sand and megaflies. Ouch!
Hidden in a Saturday morning cartoon, he had emotions, memory, loyalty, and ego, the 4 traits scientists now use to describe sentient behavior. And the show treated him that way too. He wasn't a gadget, he was a person. There's even an episode where he and BraveStarr argue about when to use violence, a horse and a lawman debating morality in the middle of an alien canyon. That's pretty heavy stuff when your target audience is 7-year-olds with cereal spoons. And yeah, the humor helped it all go down easier. 3030 cracked jokes, threw tantrums, and had that deep, gravelly voice that made every insult sound poetic. But under all that sass, he was something special. The first AI companion that felt alive. Even the way he transformed between animal and humanoid form feels oddly familiar today. Adaptive mobility? We're finally building robots that do that. It took humanity 40 years to catch up to a cartoon horse. BraveStarr had spirit powers, but 3030 had something arguably greater, self-awareness. And together, they made one of the most underrated duos of the 1980s. But their dusty little planet wasn't just a playground for moral lessons. It had its own economy, one that sounds uncomfortably familiar today. Every great Western has a boomtown, and BraveStarr had Fort Carrium. On the surface, it looked like your classic frontier settlement, a dusty main street, swinging saloon doors, and a sheriff's office that always needed new windows after a brawl. But in BraveStarr's world, this town wasn't running on gold or oil. It ran on Carrium, a glowing red crystal that powered everything from laser rifles to entire cities.
Hey, move it! Come on, move it, you varmints!
Carrium wasn't just a prop, it was the plot. People mined it, stole it, smuggled it, and fought wars over it. Sound familiar? Swap Carrium for oil, lithium, or even crypto, and suddenly you've got a story about resource dependency and power imbalance that feels a lot less like a cartoon and a lot more like the headlines we read today. And that's what made BraveStarr quietly brilliant. It was teaching kids about economics, corruption, and energy greed without ever saying those words out loud. Every outlaw wanted Carrium. Every corporation wanted to control it. And every time BraveStarr had to defend Fort Carrium, it wasn't just about protecting a town. It was about fighting the system that made everyone chase the same glowing rock. Even the name Fort Carrium hits differently now. It's a metaphor for every boom and bust economy we've ever built. The show made the Wild West feel futuristic not by adding lasers, but by showing how technology doesn't change human nature. Greed just finds new fuel. And here's what, Carrium was literally alive. In one episode, it reacted to emotion, glowing brighter when people worked together. It's a wild idea, but kind of poetic, a power source that thrives on cooperation. Imagine if every energy company ran on kindness instead of contracts. That's what BraveStarr did best. It hid big questions inside space cowboy adventures. And where there's energy and greed, there's always someone ready to exploit it. Enter Tex Hex, the ghost outlaw who looked like he crawled straight out of a cosmic fever dream.
We got all of Fort Carrium to ourselves. heroes.
I can't believe it. BraveStarr turned in his badge, Ed.
I saw it myself.
Every good Western needs a villain, and BraveStarr didn't just deliver one, it unleashed Tex Hex, a walking nightmare with purple skin, glowing eyes, and a voice that sounded like smoke and whiskey had a baby. He wasn't your typical evil for the sake of evil cartoon baddie. Tex Hex was tragic, stylish, and surprisingly complex, a mix between an undead cowboy and a malfunctioning android with a grudge against the universe. Before he became the terror of New Texas, Tex Hex was a human, a prospector corrupted by greed and transformed into a twisted energy vampire by dark alien magic. Basically, a walking warning about what happens when you let power consume you. Literally. He served an ancient cosmic entity named Stampede, who looked like Skeletor's bigger, angrier cousin.
The shaman's magic will be destroyed. Star Peak will be mine.
But Tex Hex was the real soul of the show's darkness. What made him stand out wasn't just the look, though the character design still slaps, it was the personality. He wasn't a cartoon stereotype. He had feelings, memories, even regret. Sometimes he'd hesitate before pulling the trigger, and other times he'd go full on chaos. You never quite knew which version you were getting, and that unpredictability made him fascinating. Rewatching it today, Tex Hex feels like a villain built for the modern age. He's not a machine or a monster. He's a man who became one. He blurs the line between organic and artificial, good and evil, human and enhanced. The show practically whispered a question that sci-fi movies would spend decades chasing. What happens when the pursuit of power costs you your humanity? And credit where it's due, his design predicted the whole cyber-western aesthetic that's trendy now.
Spike my guns. Can that be a real Marshall's badge you're wearing?
You bet it is.
Good. You can come throw old shaman off my land.
Glowing eyes, metal implants, mystical tech corruption. You see that DNA in everything from The Mandalorian to Cyberpunk 2077. But BraveStarr didn't just stop at cool villains. It used that conflict, man versus machine, nature versus greed, to ask a much bigger question about what kind of future we're building. And the theme hit hardest in one surprisingly heavy episode, the one about addiction. You know how 80s cartoons usually ended with a neat little moral? Be kind to your friends, don't litter, brush your teeth? BraveStarr said, yeah, we'll do one better. Let's talk about drug addiction and death. Yeah, in a kids show. In the infamous episode The Price, a young boy named JB experiments with a drug called Spin, a glowing crystal substance sold by Tex Hex's gang. He gets hooked fast, collapses in the street, and here's the part that still shocks everyone. He dies. No magical rescue, no cartoon reset button, just BraveStarr kneeling beside him, silent, realizing he was too late.
Don't bother. It's too late.
Oh no! Jay! Oh no! Oh, Jay!
It's one of the rarest and rawest scenes ever aired on Saturday morning TV. No music, no joke to break the tension. Just a quiet, heartbreaking moment that told every kid watching that actions have consequences. Something most moral of the story endings barely touched. The writers weren't trying to traumatize anyone. They were trying to wake them up. America was in the middle of the 80s drug crisis, and Filmation, a studio mostly known for a catchy theme song and toy tie-ins, dropped an anti-drug story that hit harder than any PCA could. It treated kids like real people, not consumers. And here's what's crazy. Decades later, that same episode feels like it's talking about modern problems. Replace Spin with screens, vapes, or dopamine, and it's still relevant. It wasn't just about substances, it was about the human need to escape and how even the future can't fix that. This wasn't supposed to happen in cartoons. BraveStarr broke the unspoken rule that Saturday mornings had to be safe. It took a risk, and even though the show didn't last long, that single episode proves something. You can tell the truth to kids if you respect them enough to handle it. And that, honestly, that willingness to go dark might be why BraveStarr still feels oddly timeless. But the show's future-predicting streak didn't end there, because its take on technology and justice turned out to be way ahead of the curve too. Long before drones were hovering over cities and self-driving cars got confused by traffic cones, BraveStarr was already asking a weirdly modern question. What happens when law enforcement goes digital? See, on New Texas, BraveStarr wasn't the only one keeping order. He had backup, mechanical deputies, scanner droids, surveillance tech, even floating orbs that could record everything that happened in town. To a kid in the 80s, it was just futuristic world building. To an adult watching now, it's straight up predictive.
It's a troop carrier with Commander Wall's ship.
Wake up!
Chief, wait!
No, Marshals. Waiting's over. Now it's time to fight!
Those little crime recorders look suspiciously like police body cams. The instant background checks, like modern facial recognition AI. The robot deputies, they were basically the first sketch of autonomous policing systems. BraveStarr trusted them, but the show always hinted that maybe he shouldn't. Episodes constantly raised questions about the fairness and control. When a machine enforces the law, does it understand the why behind it? When someone breaks the rules, is it compassion or calculation that decides their fate? BraveStarr walked that line in almost every case, using his own empathy to override cold logic. That's a debate we're still having today, only now it's not fiction. What made it brilliant was how the writers disguised those questions inside action scenes. You'd get a wild chase through the desert or a shootout in a mining camp, but underneath, the story was asking whether technology should serve justice or define it. And BraveStarr himself was the perfect middle ground. Half spiritual, half technological, he represented balance, a reminder of sort that progress doesn't mean forgetting humanity. So yeah, while modern tech companies argue about AI ethics, BraveStarr quietly nailed the dilemma in 1987, wrapped in laser gunfire and horse jokes. It's kind of wild, isn't it? A cartoon made to sell toys accidentally predicted predictive policing, surveillance culture, and moral algorithms, all before floppy disk went out of style. But hey, if BraveStarr's take on tech felt prophetic, its take on the environment was even bolder. Because next up, we're talking about space pollution, mining greed, and the show's eerily accurate warning about destroying the planet.
Begin the final assault on New Texas. Gather my forces. Prepare the planet for my bronco swords.
You wouldn't expect a cartoon about space cowboys to double as an environmental manifesto, but BraveStarr somehow pulled it off. While other shows were busy selling jetpacks and pizza, this one quietly warned kids about something way more real. What happens when you strip a planet for profit? The setting of New Texas was no accident. It wasn't some lush paradise. It was a dry, half-broken world already carved up by corporations hungry for carrion. Every mountain had a mine. Every valley hid a drilling rig. The planet itself felt tired, like it had seen too much greed already. And the show didn't ignore it. Episode after episode, BraveStarr had to stop outlaws and tycoons from overmining, polluting, and tearing apart the land for short-term gain. He talked about balance, respect, and sustainability long before those became corporate buzzwords. Honestly, it's surreal. In between laser duels and shootouts, you'd have a cartoon horse and a space sheriff explaining why overexploitation destroys ecosystems. There's a great moment where BraveStarr says, "The planet gives you what it can, but not forever." That's straight up environmental philosophy in a show animated at 8-year-olds with plastic toy blasters. Filmation somehow turned Captain Planet before Captain Planet existed. It wasn't preachy though. That's what made it land.
Here is my plan. I will move my cloud form over Fort Kellium to cover your attack.
Maybe we better wait a little, huh?
The message was always wrapped in a fun adventure, so you didn't feel like you were in class. You cared because New Texas looked beautiful. All orange skies and twin suns, and you didn't want to see it ruined. Watching now, it feels prophetic. We're living through the same storylines. Resource shortages, environmental collapse, tech-fueled greed. Only difference? BraveStarr was trying to warn us while we were still eating Lucky Charms. And as heavy as those themes got, the show never lost its sense of wonder. It still believed that people could do better, that courage and conscience could actually win. That optimism ran through every episode, but it also played a big part in why BraveStarr never became a mainstream hit, because it wasn't safe enough to sell. For all its creativity, BraveStarr never stood a chance. It aired in 1987, the same year Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and DuckTales took over the world, and kids wanted mutant ninjas, not moral philosophy from a space sheriff. The toys didn't sell well either. Filmation had bet big on the action figure market, but by the time they hit the shelves, the cartoon boom was already fading. A movie followed in 1988, but it flopped hard, mostly because no one even knew it existed. And within a year, the studio shut down entirely. And yet, what's wild is how much BraveStarr got right. It tackled AI ethics, energy greed, environmental collapse, addiction, and even representation. Things that took mainstream media decades to catch up on.
As soon as the boys give Shaman the box with the sleepy bomb, we'll set it off.
It tried to teach kids empathy and self-awareness while still giving them shootouts, spaceships, and laser horses. That's why it deserves another look. Not just as a relic, but as a proof that 80s animation could be weird, brave, and way ahead of its time. BraveStarr didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because it was too early. And now, decades later, maybe we're finally living in the world it warned us about. And that's the story of BraveStarr, the 80s cartoon that aimed for toy shelves but somehow hit the future instead. It didn't last, but it left a mark, a quiet reminder that even the wildest kids' shows can carry something real underneath the lasers and the jokes. If this trip back to New Texas made you smile, hit that super thanks to keep these forgotten stories alive, and check out the DVD links below if you want to see this space western for yourself. Because who knows? Maybe BraveStarr didn't just predict the future. Maybe it was trying to save it.